The tax status, for instance, if you stay, each country has more or less a rule, more than a number of days in the country, then you automatically establish a fiscal residency and need to pay taxes.
Hi, I'm Kym Tolson and I'm the traveling therapist. It's my passion to teach therapists how to navigate online private practices and multiple income streams so they can travel the world. I'm a digital nomad with a virtual insurance-based private therapy practice and a multi-six-figure coaching business. I'm obsessed with entrepreneurship and developing tools that can help therapists live an adventurous lifestyle. In this podcast, I will discuss my journey as a digital nomad. I'll chat with other traveling therapists and help you navigate the complexities of running an online insurance-based practice. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Traveling Therapist Podcast. Really excited today. We have a very cool guest that's got quite a story. I'm so excited to dive in because we have Juan, and I'm going to mess up his last name. I just told him I'd mess it up. Maillo. And it's close enough. Good. He's a traveling therapist, and he's just got a really cool story, and I want to learn from him, and hopefully you guys will too if you want to do something similar to what he's doing. So, Juan, I'd love if you would introduce yourself and also just share a little bit about how you went from being a traditional therapist to a traveling therapist.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a marriage and family therapist I graduated in 2013 in San Francisco. And for the longest time, I was practicing in the Bay Area, typically working for some company or another, not doing private therapy, mostly because I didn't want the hassle of running a business. And it's like, I want to focus on being a therapist and not having to focus on running a business. It seemed hard. Right. I've been thinking for a while about moving to Italy, and I was in love with it. I lived for a year when I was in my 20s. I think I was 23, 24. I lived in Florence with a student exchange.
Oh, nice.
I've always wanted to come back. So finally, after 2 or 3 years of thinking about it, and with the help of my wife, we took the leap.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love Italy too. Oh my gosh. I've been a few places over there and I just would love to go back. I just spent like a year just going all around Italy. I love it so much. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So even before being in San Francisco, you were originally from Spain. Is that correct? And then you moved to the U.S. Okay. Wow. So when did you move from Spain to the U.S.? And then I guess you started your education, your career, and then stayed for a while?
Right. So I moved to the U.S. roughly when I was 25. Okay. I met my wife, who is American. I met her in Barcelona. And even though I'm from Granada, down south.
Oh, wow.
We met there. And a couple of years later, we decided to go to the U.S. I had done a degree in pedagogy, we call it, or education sciences in Spain, the equivalent of a BA and a master's. Not much in the way of job prospects there. I was a server. I worked at Burger King and McDonald's in Spain.
Well, yeah.
I figure, if I'm going to work as a server, I may as well do it abroad. It's more fun. So picked up and moved to the US. And there I got my MFT after a few years.
That's amazing. Yeah. So how does that, I'm just curious, how does that work? Like visa purpose? Did you guys get married in Spain and then did you come back into the U.S. as like a married citizen? I just don't know how the visa works that way or just what that process is like.
Yeah, there are different ways of getting your visa through marriage. What we did at the time in particular, it turned out to be the best way without knowing, which is,
oh, wow.
We first came to the U.S. on vacation for like a month after a year of being together. We got married in the U.S.
Okay.
Came back to Spain and figured out the paperwork for my wife to be legal because that was part of it. She was working as an illegal in Spain for the longest time.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So we fixed our situation. And then when we decided that we're going to come to the U.S., I started then from Spain making the arrangements to get, not necessarily we get a visa, right, as you Americans, a 3-month visa, but to be able to live, what I started to request is the green card, right? Permanent visa in the US through marriage. And
Okay.
by starting those things from Spain, it made it a lot faster. So it was a bit of work. I had to go to Madrid, the capital, to go to the consulate and whatnot, or the embassy. But once I did everything, the famous interview where they ask you the things to see if you make a mistake, it's not that big a deal. Then everything was set, and I came to the US, and within a week, with a special stamp in my visa, and then in a week or two, they sent me the green card, and that was it.
Wow. Well, that's pretty easy. Yeah.
Yeah, all things considered. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you, I guess we'll get into Italy too, but do you still have dual citizenship, I guess, with the US and Spain? Is that how that works? Okay.
So for a while, I was only a green card holder, and only a couple of 2 or 3 years ago is when I got my citizenship in the US.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Can't remember. I think it's because my son, maybe when my son was born, I got the citizenship. I'm not sure. But when I started thinking about moving, I wanted to keep the foothold in the US anyways. And Spain, fortunately, allows for dual citizenship.
Okay.
So I'm able to maintain both. And coming back to Europe, the European Union, I can have, with my Spanish citizenship, I can live everywhere.
Hello.
With some difficult bureaucratic annoyances that have been incredible out here, by the way.
Maybe we should talk about that too, just so people know what to expect. Yeah. Sure. Okay. So all of that, so you got settled and everything, and then you guys decide we're going to move to Italy now. We want to move over there. So what is that process like? What does that look like?
Gosh, that was one of the most difficult things we've done, to be honest. It's my wife and our 5-year-old and me. We have a house in Santa Rosa, California, that we bought and still there. And I was hoping that we could rent it or, furnished, but it's not common in the US. So I tried for months and that wasn't happening. So finally we had to empty the house to sell everything. That was a huge part of it. If it wasn't for my wife, I don't think I could have done it. Just that.
Yeah. It's a big undertaking.
Much to sort through. Yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can relate to that. Gosh, we still have a storage unit that's full of stuff. Despite multiple attempts to get rid of stuff, it's tough. Right.
It is a lot that you accumulate. And we didn't want to do the storage. It felt like it was a waste of money. No knowing if we were going to come back or when. It's like, let's just get rid of everything, hope for the best, and take it from there. So we essentially got an Airbnb for a month.
Okay.
I started looking into apartments here in Perugia, and I got so lucky. I got really a good break because it turned out that a friend that I had made, an American friend before I even moved to the US, I met her in Granada, like 20 years ago almost. She turned out that had lived in Perugia and had a couple of friends still here. And she had the grace to introduce me through Facebook to this friend, this one guy, Jacopo. He's, some call him Saint Jacopo because he is so nice and so helpful. He also lived abroad. He helped me get an apartment. He came before I came. He came to visit the one that I wanted to check out, and it turned out that apartment is where I'm actually staying right now.
Wow!
And showed me around, and eventually even gave me a job as a professor in an American university where he works. So things kind of worked out in some great ways.
Oh my gosh! That is amazing! Wow. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's something people don't even think about. It's like you got to move to another country, but maybe it's sight unseen from the apartment you're going to live in or anything. You just have to kind of do a leap of faith in a lot of cases and pick a place. So backing up to your house in the U.S., did you guys emptied it out? Did you end up renting it out, or do you still own it? Okay.
Yeah, we're renting it. We were lucky that sort of like sorted out. I mean, takes care of itself right now.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh. That's so interesting. Okay. So then you get the apartment and everything. You got the house settled in California. And what do you have to do as far as visas go to move to Italy? Like, how does that work? What's the process?
So for me, it was just a matter of coming into Italy and getting the residency established, which was a pain in and of itself. I can explain more. And for my wife has been a little bit more difficult and still is, as well as for my son. He's in a limbo right now. They're both in a bit of a limbo. So in Italy, things are kind of complicated, especially I think if you're not an Italian citizen per se. So I know that a lot of Americans are getting their Italian citizenship through family and whatnot. Maybe that's a little bit easier. But to get kind of recognized here and be able to, I can technically live here, but there are some things that I couldn't access, like the healthcare or, bring my wife with me there, give her sort of like access to a visa as what she would be considered the spouse of a European citizen. That's the kind of visa she can get.
Gotcha.
So for that, I needed the residency. And for me to get the residency, I needed to get private insurance to show, because I don't have a work contract here. So I either needed a work contract or private insurance. And a number of other things. Is not the internet here, as in having website that gives you clear information. It's not as good as the US. Yeah. And the bureaucracy in general is not as good. You have to call a lot at places, talk to people, go to a place that you told that is not there, make an appointment some way that you couldn't know beforehand. So it took some some headaches. So I got it, and I got my residency and even my Italian identity card now. But for my wife, we've been here since August, so like 7 months. She has an appointment for, I think it's next month or so, the first appointment with immigration to review her application. We don't even know. And they say that it takes a year in this city, at least, for that to be processed once you have the appointment.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Okay. But is she, I guess she's able to stay until it's processed, right? It's not like something where you've only got 6 months and you have to leave, or, just curious, like.
Right. So it's technically she's illegal right now, because her visa as an American tourist expired after 3 months. And as such, for instance, during Christmas, I went to Spain and my wife had to stay behind because we didn't know if she could go out of the country, and then at the airport, they would stop her and say, your visa is expired. You cannot come back until you wait another 3 months or whatever. She's probably within Europe. She wouldn't technically be able. We don't know. We just didn't know what would happen.
It's that Schengen thing, right? So it's like you could be 90 days in, but then I think you have to be 180 out or something like that. Right. Okay.
Something like that. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So she's just going to hang out and not leave the country until this appointment and the process. Yeah. Oh my God.
Exactly. Exactly. We don't know exactly what would have happened, because now that I thought of it after the fact, my son is in the same situation, because even though he has dual citizenship, technically, he doesn't have a Spanish passport yet, and that's in a whole nother limbo right now too. So we will try to figure out how he can get the passport, because he has citizenship. He just needs to get the passport through the consulate, our closest consulate, and it's giving us a hard headache too.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So many moving parts. Yeah.
Yes. So many.
And I guess we don't even know like what happens in Italy. They figure out you've been there past the 90 days or something, but I've never even heard what happens. I know we were just in the Dominican Republic, and they do have it's a 30-day visa, but they allow you to overstay. They don't care if you overstay. You just have to pay like a fine for every day over that you stay. So when we got to the airport, they just like a big red X comes up on the screen, and they make you go talk to somebody, and then they basically calculate how many days you've been there, or they just charge you. And it's like not expensive. It's like, I don't know. My boyfriend would kill me if I say that, because he says I never had the details right, but it was like 20 pesos a day or something. So it was like $70 each, I think, something essentially for, I think we stayed over like 30 days or something. So I always wonder how it works in other countries. Like, what happens if you overstay your visa? Yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah, no, I don't know. My sense has always been that you technically can get flagged, and then you may have a hard time to, in this case, coming to Italy or the EU altogether, right? I don't know what could happen exactly, but it's strange because things are not always clear cut. I think there's a difference. In the US, things are a little bit clearer for better and for worse. When we came in, we obviously came through the line of European citizens at the border. And I don't remember them doing anything to our passport, right? Typically, they stamp when you enter. There's no stamps in our passports. And I'm not sure why. We've looked then later to make copies that we needed to, in fact, show visa for the immigration. And I was like, well, we don't have a visa. The visa comes with the passport. There's not even a stamp. What do you want me to tell you? And my son had no trouble going out of Italy and coming back. But I don't know if it's because he was a child and they just didn't care about his visa status. So I'm not sure, or simply bureaucratic ineptitude, because that can happen here too. It's for better and for worse. I've been told things that are one way and then they are the other way.
Wow.
So
yeah.
It's a bit of a mess sometimes.
I hear you. Yeah. I mean, it just makes me think of the Traveling Therapist Facebook group. Like I even tried to recently implement a policy like let's just not say you can do something without like proof, because every day in the group somebody's like, yeah, you're allowed to do that, or no, you're not allowed to do that, but there's no evidence. It's just hearsay. It's just constant hearsay. Yeah, and it's like we need to be a little more specific about this because, like you said, I mean, you hear one thing, you hear something else, and you find out like none of it's true. It's something else completely. So it's quite the journey trying to get this information for each country, for sure.
It is, but I'll say I've learned that you have to be comfortable, and I'm not. I'm the kind of person who likes to know what's up.
Yeah.
You have to learn to be comfortable with walking that line of not being sure if you're always in the clear. I mean, to have a plan and to have a sort of like contingency plan and an idea of the risks, it's good. But sometimes there are so many things, right? Like the whole thing with the license and what they tell you, that you can and cannot do, and what they don't tell you. So there's so much is that it got me in anxiety. And I want to say that one of the biggest pushes forward, I got it from your podcast, one in the way of inspiration, and two with an MFT, California licensed, who I heard have moved to Spain, actually. So it seemed like a similar enough situation, and I got in touch with her to ask her a few things that I could not figure out. I just couldn't. How the insurance, when it covers you, it doesn't cover you, the license board, which answer me in some cryptic ways. And she really clarified a couple of points that were really helpful for me.
Oh, I just got goosebumps. That's amazing that you were able to get information that way and that it helped you on your journey. I just love hearing that, really. Wow. So you brought up licensing. That's something we definitely talk about on this podcast.
No, definitely you do.
So you're an MFT licensed to California. Are you still seeing your clients back in California right now? Or you also mentioned being a professor in Italy. So I was just curious, like, what has that transition been like for you, and how are you managing all that stuff?
Yeah, so what I've kept things separate. I'm doing therapy with my clients in California.
Okay.
And I'm not seeing any clients right now here.
Okay.
Because it's not super clear in some ways. The idea is that here you have the figure of a psychologist and the figure of a psychotherapist. You need to do, on top of the psychology degree, something else, a year or two to be called a psychotherapist. I learned that recently.
Running your own private practice is hard. With so many parts, it can sometimes feel overwhelming. That's where Practice swoops in. Created specifically with mental health providers in mind. OWL offers a comprehensive HIPAA-compliant solution that helps you manage your practice in one convenient platform. Meet with your clients virtually through video therapy, which is fully integrated and secure. Manage client appointments and client records seamlessly. You can streamline your claim process with OWL's integrated insurance and claim capabilities. You can use OWL to invoice and manage payments. OWL Payments ensures financial data is stored securely, and no sessions are left unpaid. OWL is not only for providers, it also offers a secure client portal to enhance the client experience. Clients can use the portal to securely message their therapist, submit digital intake forms, complete necessary paperwork, and book appointments. Let OWL handle the heavy lifting so you can focus on what you care about the most, providing quality care for your clients. Visit owlpractice.com/Kym Tolson to claim a special offer of 50% off your first 6 months.
The figure of counselor or marriage and family therapist, that none of that exists, except for counselor has become an umbrella term for people that do, it's common in Europe, people that have different degrees, but then do a 2 or 3 years master's in Gestalt therapy or some therapy, some specific form of therapy, and it's similar to an MFT. But there's no recognition, at least here. I know in Spain there isn't, and in Italy there isn't. As a professional, there's no licensing board, there's no regulation. So you can be a counselor through one of these institutions that are not regulated. So it doesn't matter a whole lot.
Oh, okay.
So in that sense, I cannot be a psychotherapist technically, or at least not an Italian psychoterapeuta. That's how they call it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not in any ways, it doesn't pay very well to work as a therapist here. At least not with the locals, because then you pay local prices and life is a lot cheaper here for every regard, you know?
Yeah, I've definitely heard that because people have asked me before, like, can I see clients in Italy if I move there? And I'm like, I don't know. I've tried to research it myself. I just have never been able to find like clear, documentation about, how that works. And if you can, like you said, there doesn't seem to really be an equivalent. Yeah, it's so interesting. And then, of course, like visa stuff, it's like, can you work in the country? Can you earn money? Like, what does that mean as far as taxes go? And yeah, but I guess you're working there as a professor, right? So how does that work? I don't even know. Like, to have a job there, is it because you have the dual EU citizenship that you're able to just work there pretty easily, or how does that work?
Well, just to separate the two jobs, the tax status, for instance, if you stay, each country has more or less a rule, more than a number of days in the country, then you automatically establish a fiscal residency and need to pay taxes. Okay. And I think that's like 4 or 6 months out of the year, even if you break it in chunks. You stay more than a number of days, a number of months, and then you have to pay. And I will probably have to pay. I'm already talking to a special accountant for expats to deal with the American side and the Italian. There's a non-double taxation agreement, so I don't have to pay double taxes, but I have to file taxes in both countries and say, hey, I'm paying this much here already, so don't charge me again. And God knows, only a specialist can tell you exactly how to do that, right? Mm-hmm. So that's that piece. I'm working here, I think irrespective of your visa status, you can continue working in your U.S. business, right?
Yeah.
And figure out the taxes depending on the day and the length of time. And then as a professor, there's turns out within 3-minute walk of my house, there's an American university, which is where my friend works, and they need professors that speak English fluently enough, and not like Italians that know English. And apparently a big advantage I had was both, that I can speak English and teach and have an MFT, and also apparently the fact that I have an European passport makes it a lot easier for them to hire me as well.
Wow. Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. So what are you teaching? Is it like therapy based, or is it something totally different?
No, right now I'm teaching just one class, and if I stay next semester, I may teach something else. I'm teaching psychopathology for university students. I guess people are doing their undergrads. Yeah, their BA. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that is so interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Americans that come here for like a semester. And there's a lot of universities. This one has the reputation for being a little more serious and not as much a party scene. And they are pretty rigorous. They are pretty rigorous. They asked me to enforce having, I think it was 40 or 50 minimum pages of readings a week.
Wow.
Like that, which is,
oh my gosh,
I would say is pretty high.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I don't want to go to that university. No, I'm just kidding. Wow. Okay. That is just really interesting. So what about your wife? Is she able to work at all, or is she not able to work? I'm just curious. Oh, you're like, oh Lord, that's a whole other. Okay.
Right, because she's illegal here, kind of hanging until her situation is just, arranged and fixed. She cannot work, although working in Italy to some extent is very common to work under the table too. They call it that underground economy. Then the percentage of the economy that they make that out to be is really big. I don't remember exactly, but it's sort of kind of uncanny. So she's not working now. She's teaching, I think, English. Yeah, she was teaching English to a few people here and there. So just getting paid privately,
So interesting. Yeah. So she doesn't have like a remote job back in the U.S. or anything like that. Because a lot of people ask me that all the time. It's like, okay, I know I can work, but what about my spouse? I mean, what are they going to do? There's no way for them to make money, when they're in another country. So,
right.
Yeah. So interesting. Gosh. But it sounds like you guys are making it work despite all these challenges. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For the most part, yeah. Right now we're at the point of considering, are we going to come back next year? We have to, get our kid to school or whatnot, or are we going to stay? She wanted to change careers. That was a part of the push too. She was a teacher in the U.S. for, 13 years, I think. And now she's learning to become a coach. She's kind
nice.
Then you think?
Yeah.
And having some time to study, but we're not sure. She's having a hard time, actually, adjusting to life here, mostly feeling a little disconnected, lonely. She's learning Italian, and I would say her level is medium. Yeah, about medium, middle of the road. And that makes it harder. And also as an American, it's not as easy for her as it's been for me.
That is so interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, so y'all are sort of contemplating, should we just go back to the U.S. or try to stick it out here and make it work?
Exactly. Yeah, we're definitely right now at a crossroads, and it could change. And within a month or two, we'll be making a decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gosh, such a journey. I hope you'll come back maybe and tell us what happens and how it goes for you guys. Because, I mean, this is the reality of it. It's like, gosh, you have these big dreams. Like, wouldn't it be fun to live in Italy? But then it's like all this other stuff just makes it really hard sometimes. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. You're so right. It feels bad to in my mind, at least, when I think about it, it's like, I feel like I'm going to be a failed story, of now going back to the U.S. because things didn't work out. And I'll say, to tell you the truth, part of the problem has been making enough money, because I started private practice when I came here, and I lost some of the networking when I came here. So it's been hard to develop the practice, and the job here, helps, but it's only one class. That's part of the decision-making process, is the not having a good, healthy income to sustain us in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hear that over and over again. Just private practice in general. And I don't know, are you a private pay clinician, or do you take insurance in the U.S.?
Private pay.
Private pay, yeah.
Insurance. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a whole other issue. The insurance companies are cracking down on where the clinician can be located, and private pay is harder for a lot of people, so I just keep hearing this stuff come up over and over again. Yeah, it's not easy. And I hear what you're saying about feeling like a failure almost. We were in the Dominican Republic, and we could not wait to come back to the U.S. After 4 months, it was like, okay, that was fun, but we miss the U.S. Like, it's easier in a lot of ways, we have our cars and grocery stores and, any
shop you want. You just go buy stuff that you need, just, everybody wants to leave the US, but we were really like, gosh, we're glad to be back in a way. Like we just want to stay put in the US for a while. So I hear what you're saying. Like it kind of feels a little bit like, well, you're the traveling therapist. You're supposed to, just love being in all these countries. But it just, by the end of our little stint over there, we were like, okay, we need a little, we just need like the norm, what we're used to kind of thing, But
yeah, it's hard. To adjust to another country. I don't know. Do you speak Spanish when you were in Costa Rica? Would you?
Very little. Yeah. I mean, I was learning, I guess they say un poquito, just a little teeny bit, so I could communicate basically, but nothing fluent, Yeah.
Right. Because that is kind of one of the first or the most obvious barriers, right? When you go somewhere else, it definitely makes a big difference. And I would say outside of the US, it's also more important to speak the local language because things are not as well organized. Maybe in Germany it's not the same, or in England, but every other country in Southern Europe and then sure in Latin America is like you need to speak enough to be able to understand things. And then to become part of the fabric of the country, that's a whole nother level. And
really is.
That's the only way that you can really move permanently. You have to become part of it in some way.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, you have to adapt to the culture. Even in the Caribbean, it's like, time doesn't exist the same way. It's like there's that, island time and then like American time or my time, it's like I have an appointment at this time. That's when the appointment's supposed to start. But even stuff like that, it doesn't happen that way, Wait, I did a whole podcast episode, but it was somebody else that lives in the Caribbean. It's like it's wild. And like you said, you have to adapt to it. You have to become part of that culture and the way things run. And like you said earlier, just try to feel comfortable with it instead of like kind of be a little uptight about it. Because I'm a little bit like that. Like, if I say we're starting at this time, that's the time we start,
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like that in a lot of countries. Yeah, it's just not. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
so many things to learn. And I appreciate you coming on and talking about it. It's just super interesting. And, I'll be curious to hear if you guys go back, and, it's just too many barriers because it does sound like a lot of really tough barriers. And then it also sounds like your child is going to be starting school, I guess, and you'd have to figure out how to make that work if you stay over in Italy.
Yeah, no, and I'm happy to get more into the way that we're trying to make the decision.
Okay. I'd love to hear.
Yeah. My son, in fact, did the kindergarten here last year, and we already sent him up for a school to start elementary, and that's kind of figured out. At least we have it. We have the spot, and my wife was applying for him to go to school there in the US too, also to make sure that he had a spot there, right? You kind of have to do these things. You can't wait when you have a kid.
Yeah.
Have that backup. And that part is fixed, but the difficulties between the money, her feeling lonely, those are the two biggest, I would say, moving pieces that make it hard.
Mm-hmm.
For me, as you can imagine, my identity is not regular identity in the sense I didn't grow up in between two countries. I was solid in Spain until I was in my 20s. Mm-hmm. But most of my adult life, I've spent it in the US. My mind functions in both ways. I have a foot here and a foot there, and now I'm in Italy, which feels comfortable enough to Spain. I constantly comparing it to the US. And it annoys me, all the inefficiencies that are here. It's incredible how inefficient it is. And sometimes it's like, you don't want to make money. It makes you think like this store, why don't they have a website where they have at least clearly the products and the prices, or what do they close on lunch when people would come most?
Yep.
And it's sort of like the value over making money. The idea, I think, is underneath it all. People value having a good life, right? And I'm grappling a lot with that. What is more important to me? Because that was part of why I was nostalgic about coming to Italy, coming back to Europe. Is in the US, in California, I would say even more in the Bay Area. There's this mentality, right? Of work, work, work. There's work and you can make money, but everything is expensive. And there's this kind of hamster wheel that everyone is encouraged to get into, very comfortable hamster wheel sometimes, but that's a hamster, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are the things that have been going through my mind and trying to make a decision. Right now, I would say I prefer to stay for another year because it's being really hard to kind of get settled, and it would be helpful to kind of be able to relax and enjoy. But and before making a decision, that would be my preference. But my wife is having a harder time. And another thing that I've come to realize, we've had our differences in our relationship, married for 18 years. And it's been really nice to reconnect and rediscover that, the most important thing for me comes down to is be with her and stay well together, right? It's like, I prefer this, but if you really can't make it here, let's go back. It's fine.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have a certain clarity about that. And I don't regret in any, even if it doesn't work, right? To have made this leap.
Yeah, I love that. That's definitely part of the journey, is being with a partner and, having different dials and different ways you think about things, and what feels comfortable to one might not feel comfortable to the other, and trying to negotiate that constantly. Yeah.
Don't you know it, huh?
Yeah, I know it. I think we could have a whole other episode on that. Like, how do we manage all that? Yeah, no, I know. It's tough, but it sounds like you guys are solid and you're making it work, and you're going to just do what's right for the family eventually, and you took the leap to see how it went too, which I think is cool, regardless of where you show up or end up back to. Yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah. It's the kind of saying that when you're 50 or 60, you look back and you don't regret having done that. You might regret not having done it, right?
Exactly. It'll be like, remember that time we lived in Italy? Wasn't that cool? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much for being a guest. And how would people reach out to you if they wanted to talk to you or work with you in some capacity?
Yeah, I think the easiest way would be through my website, because I have everything there, my phone number, my email, and I guess that's it. Right now, I'm not much in social media. So my website, it's easy, like the word easy, teletherapy.com.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's a great website. Yeah, easy teletherapy. I like that.
Thank you.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And we, like I said, love to have you back another time once you guys decide where you're going to be or how it's going to work out, especially these logistics around the visas and trying to figure out taxes and just all of that. Be super helpful. I know that there's probably people listening that are feeling the same way or might have the dual EU citizenship and, a spouse that isn't. And how do you manage all that? Just really interesting. Yeah.
It's complicated.
You.
Yeah. You're welcome. I'd love to come back. We're just about to get ready with the taxes. So in 6 months, whether I stay or we leave, we'll know a lot more about that part of the deal too.
Yeah, that'd be super interesting. That'd be really helpful, I think, to listeners for sure. Well, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Kym. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Traveling Therapist podcast. For show notes, links, and downloads, head over to thetravelingtherapist.com, where you'll be able to learn more about my journey, the courses I've created for you, and other exciting resources to make your dreams become a reality. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share with your traveling therapist friends, subscribe to the podcast, and if you loved this episode, please leave a review.